Greetings, everyone. DFG here, Gideon's Flight. Hey, guys, I want to take a moment and I want to tell you about a Jesus that some of you have not met. Now, when I say the word Jesus, I'm only saying that because some in the audience may not know I'm talking about Yeshua, okay? So I want to tell you something about the Yeshua that you may not have met. And in most cases, I know your preachers and your teachers haven't introduced you to. So give me a couple of minutes of your time, and I'm going to share from your history book, our history book, Hebrew Israelites and Gentiles who have aligned themselves up with Hebrew Israelites. I want to tell you a little bit about Yeshua, the one you have not met, okay? So, grant me your attention, a little bit of your time, and we'll get through this, okay? Promise you. And then on the end, I want to share how the past and the present are not so distant or as distant as we have been told. Because there's a big conversation going on right now. And yes, I'm going to use that reparations word again. That Yeshua is going to help shed some insight for you and all of those who desire to hear and know the truth. Okay? So bear with me. And we'll get started right now. So in our history book, okay, the book, the cipher. Some people call it the Holy Bible or the Bible, okay, or the Word. In our history book, I'm going to go to Matthew chapter 23, and I'm going to introduce the Jesus that you may not have met. Again, we know we're talking about Yeshua, okay? Not the white, brown-eyed, long-haired, naked Tarzan look-alike, not him. The dark skinned one. Then spoke Yeshua to the multitude and to his disciples, saying, the scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. All therefore whatsoever he bids you guard, that diligently guard and do. But do not after their reforms and their traditions. For they say and they do not. In other words, the scribes and the Pharisees are your so-called leaders in many instances, okay? He said they say one thing, but they do something different. He said, for they bind heavy burdens to be grievous to be borne, and they lay them on men's shoulders, but they themselves will not move them with one of their fingers. Okay, so the very things they're asking you to do, the sacrifices they're asking you to make, they won't make those sacrifices under any circumstances. And I'll use for a quick example, the giving concept of the giving prospect. They'll tell you about giving, and will a man rob, Yahuwah, but you robbed him in time. But if you go to one of these same guys and ask them for $1, you're going to get a big old line dissertation, or you're a member, you have to be with the church X amount of time. You get so much stuff that'll make you sick and want to throw up in your own mouth. Excuse that expression. That's what I can come up with for those. Okay, go on, Green. DFG. But all their works do to be seen of men. For they love to make broad the bottom of their skirts and of their garments. And they love the uppermost rooms at feasts and chief seats in the synagogues. As you go to a lot of these churches, all their so-called dignitaries are on the stages, or on the, what they call it, the pulpit or the platform behind the pulpit. You notice that? Now he's saying that these same hypocrites will be doing that. How many of you guys go in churches and that's where all the dignitaries are sitting? Or if they have a section off for the so-called dignitaries. He's telling you that you're not supposed to have that. You're not supposed to see that in these so-called churches, which he's identifying here as synagogues or upper rooms. And greetings in the markets. And they love to be called the men rabbi. But be not called rabbi. For one is your rabbi, the Messiah. And all you are brethren. So you shouldn't even be addressing them pastor this or pastor that. They can have the role of a pastor, but you still should be identifying them as brother, as Yeshua you don't know has instructed you to do. He said, call no man your father upon earth. Catholic Church, goodness gracious. Father this and father, okay, I won't even go down that road. Call no man your father upon the earth. For one is your Father, which is in heaven. Neither be you called teachers, for one is your rabbi, even the Messiah, or the Christ. But he that is greatest among you shall be your servant. When the last time you saw those guys being anybody's servant? He that is greatest among you shall be your servant. And whosoever exalt himself shall be abased, and he that shall humble himself shall be exalted. Some of these guys claim they have an anointing on them, so you can't get near it. Or they have people and security guards surrounding them all over the place because you can't get near the pastor because he's anointing and you don't want to lose his anointing. What kind of foolishness is that? Every true believer has an anointing. Every true believer has an anointing. What anointing he has? Does he go poop and pee like we do? What happens to his anointing then? I guess it waits for him outside the bathroom. Go figure, right? And okay. But woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees. When I say scribes and Pharisees, I'm talking about your priests, your preachers, all these highly religious, regarded people. He says, for you shut up the kingdom of Yahuwah against men. For neither you go in yourselves, nor do you suffer the others to enter in. He said, woe unto you, you scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites. For you devour widows' houses for the pretense of making long prayer. Therefore you shall receive the greater damnation. Now what do you mean by widows' houses? Or what he goes in? In other words, they take advantage of females, especially females who are single. They manipulate them. They create these programs for them. Woman, thou art loose. Loose from what? From who? From Satan? So all these saved women go into these big events because they need to be loosened from Satan? I thought they were already loose from Satan. Isn't that the whole purpose that they're part of the body of Yeshua? So you got to go to an event to be loose from Satan? Think about it. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites, for you compass the sea and land to make one unbeliever. And when he is made, you make him twofold the child of hell. And what he says is that because they're pushing this dogma on us, guys, on you, many of you, these lies, this misinterpret, this misrepresentation of the scripture, creating, a creator of materialism, a creator of vanity that has nothing to do with spirituality at all, as though the outward man is your man, when the truth of it, the spiritual man is the man. What you see in the mirror is not who you are. What you think in your mind and how you behave and how you conduct yourself, that is the true you as it is the true them. But they won't tell you that. And so when you walk into these hellholes now called churches, in many cases, not all, okay, not all, what you see is a bunch of vanity going on. You got all kind of debauchery going on, all kind of detestable things. Homosexuals in the choir, singing, leading the choir. Women dancing with half-naked dances, call themselves spiritual dancing, etc. I'll stop. He said, woe unto you, you blind guides. You say, whoever shall swear by the temple, it is nothing. I'm going to skip over that a little bit because it's talking about what's more important. What you say versus what you do. What he's telling you, what you do is way more important than what you say. So if you look from 16 all the way to verse 21, that's what he's talking about. Okay, again, Matthew 23. He's simply telling you, it's not about what a person says, it's about what a person does. So that's what 16 to 20 will be talking about when you read those particular verses. He said, whosoever therefore, okay, verse 21. And verse 22. Okay? Stay with me here. All right. The lighting. You see, Satan is a something, boy. Went from light to dark, if you notice that. He said, and he shall swear and they that swear by the heavens swear by the throne of Yahuwah, and by him that sits thereon. He said, woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites. He says, for you pay tithes, and then you omit the weightier matters of the Torah. In other words, you're not teaching out the scripture. You're telling them about they can have this grace, this amazing grace that allows you to do anything that you want to do. Anything goes now in these hellholes and many of these places that are called churches. And that's what he's talking about. You follow me? And he says, still you following what says, thus says the Torah, which is your book. And he goes on to say, judgment. These are the things that you should be focused on, judgment. Oh, you don't judge nobody. Well, why does he say it right here? He said that you're supposed to be focused on judgment. Now they'll tell you, the Bible said don't judge. You ain't supposed to judge. You can't judge me. Only God can judge me. Bullshit. You can be judged by other believers. That's another lie that they made. They took one verse of scripture and said, judge that you be not judged by whatever measure you judge. That's the measure you're going to be judged by. See, that's not telling you not to judge. That's just me saying don't be judged righteously. That's all that's telling you. But there is no scripture telling you not to judge people. The world is already judged. Whatever they're doing out there, that's their business. But inside the body of Yeshua, oh yes, there is judgment. And we are instructed to judge one another, to correct one another. That is a commandment of the Most High. It's in your book. He said judgment, mercy, and belief. And those ought to have done, and not to leave the others undone. When he said the others done, he's talking about the other commandments. They're telling you that the law is done and you're not supposed to keep it. That is not true, guys. You're supposed to strive to keep that law. And again, I'm not talking about falling short of it. Many men have fallen short, and many men will fall short. All of us. For certain, I'm number one. But I should be striving to keep it. I should be desirous to keep it. I should be willing to keep it and to teach it and to share it. And he says, you blind guys will strain at a gnat and you swallow a camel. That's that old sweet one that they claim that he is, but we didn't know about it. He told them, you guys are so dumb and blind. He said, you strain on a gnat, a little tiny bug, and yet you swallow a whole camel. In other words, you got it all backwards, is what he's telling them. Okay? And then he goes on to say, woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites. You may clean the outside of the cup and of the platter, but within are full of extortion. We know what extortion is? It's ripping people off, taking their money and giving them nothing in return. Lying to people, telling them that if they give something, they're going to get something when you know good and so well that's not going to happen. It's called manipulation, taking advantage of silly people who don't know. I shouldn't call them silly. I should call them ignorant people. And they're only ignorant not because they're stupid, but they're ignorant because they have a lack of knowledge. So that's why you should study your history book. Because if you don't, these devils will take advantage of you. Now I'm going to stop right there because I want to get down to one other piece here. He goes on to verse 30. He says, and if you say you have been in the days, you said if you have been, he's talking about these Pharisees and all these religious and holy people. He said, if you say if you had been around in the days of your father, you would have not been partakers of them with the blood of the prophets. See, wherefore you be witness unto yourselves that you are the children of them who killed the prophet. Now I want you to think about that. And that's verse 31. And that's what I want to take the last minute to talk about. You see, when people talk about reparations, they say, well, that had nothing to do with me. That was my parents. That had nothing to do with me. Verse 30 to 31 says just the opposite. I'm going to read it to you again, just so you don't think I'm adding to the word. He said, if you had been around in the days of your father, you would not have done what your fathers did. But he said, wherefore you be witness unto yourselves that you're the children of them which killed the prophets. So he's saying you're a witness against yourself with the fact that you know that's what your ancestors did. Especially when you take, because the next verse he says, fill you up the measure of your father. In other words, do what they didn't do. You see what he's saying? He's saying, fill it up. In other words, they left it empty. Your responsibility is to go in there and make it right. See, reparations is right here in the scripture. It's all through the scriptures. Restore. Pay what you owe. It's all through the scripture. That's why they don't want you to read the scripture. That's why they lie and tell you this is the white man's book. This is your book, Hebrew Israelites. Copper color Aboriginal people here on Turtle Island. It's your book. And again, the next time somebody telling you about the Bible is a white book, ask them, where did you get your education from? Did you go to public or private schools? Did you read their books? Did you learn from their learning? Well, guess what? White men wrote those books. And you call yourself educated. So dismiss that foolishness from them. This is your book. This book, right again, Matthew 23, 31 to 33 is a reparation statement. For all you white Christians out there, what do you have to say about that? When are you going to get onto your congresspeople, your government, and right the wrong that's been done to your so-called brothers, right? We're all brothers in the law according to you. When are you going to right this wrong? And the lesson for the day. Talk to you soon, guys. DFG, bye now.